Good afternoon, everyone. Today, our topic is to introduce translation technology. The major content will include the definition of translation technology, and we will give a brief review of the history of translation technology. And we will also introduce the major types of translation technology. Also, we will introduce some benefits and its limitations. Then we will introduce the state-of-art translation systems. At first, translation technology can be defined as the computer-based tools and associated resources and standards used within the translation industry, according to Chatterton Force. So in this seminar, the term translation technology is used to refer to the technologies employed by translation professionals for the purpose of research, automation, productivity, and integration. Now, let's take a look at the history of its development. As early as 1950s, Georgetown University and IBM created the world's first machine translation system. It employed a rule-based lexicography approach, which means it relied on predefined grammatic rules and dictionaries. And in 1980s, the appearance of electronic dictionaries and some major terminologic database greatly increased this technology. Later on, in the middle of the 1980s, an early translation management system was produced by Lancaster Polytechnic University. And then between the late 1980s and the early 1990s, statistic machine translation was first introduced by IBM researchers. This system was word-based, and it was able to translate from one language to another by analyzing large amounts of parallel text in bilingual corpora, which means they were presented in two languages. Later on, as early as 1990s, some of the major commercial computer-assisted or computer-aided translation tools appeared. Then IBM released a new version of its statistic machine translation in late 1990s. It was phrase-based instead of word-based, and it quickly became a major commercial system until in 2006, Google entered this area. In 1997, Babelfish was launched. It was the first free online machine translation system. And a few years later, as early as 2000, the first cloud-based translation management system solutions appeared first time on the market. In 2006, Google Translate, which was a statistic machine translation system, was launched. And then 10 years later, Google Translate adopted a new method, which was an improvement on statistic machine translation, neural machine translation technology. So in essence, machine translation can be defined as the translation work performed wholly or partially by a computer program. So instead of its improvement, high quality machine translation is still difficult to achieve because of the human language is ambiguous and subtle in some areas. So machine translation system sometimes can't understand what the text they are translating is really about. As for computer-aided translation, it is use of computer programs that help human translators with specific aspects of the translation process. It is different from machine translation, as the computer programs only tend to support and facilitate a translation rather than doing the translation job themselves. But increasingly, machine translation has been used within CAD tools. The major functions of CAD tools include translation memory, terminology management, and quality assurance. And they usually are brought together within one single CAD tool. We call it translation memory tool or translation environment tool. It is used to help translators to work faster with more efficiency in one single environment. And it is presented in friendly graphic interface for translators to use. So today's seminar, we're going to introduce three major types of machine translation: rule-based machine translation, statistic machine translation, and neural machine translation. Another type of machine translation, exam-based machine translation, will be discussed further in next seminar. As for CAD tools, we will introduce briefly about its components: translation memory, term-based, quality assurance, and its environment, translation environment tools. At first, we'll introduce rule-based machine translation because it was the first approach to machine translation and is relatively mature. It consists of two basic components: the rules for representing syntactic knowledge and the lexicon for representing its morphologic, syntactic, and semantic information. So rules as well as lexicons are based on linguistic knowledge. They are created beforehand by expert linguists. In this way, the build-up process is costly, and the system itself requires a lot of maintenance. Therefore, it is incapable of adapting to new demands. As for statistic machine translation, it was built up by analyzing bilingual corpora. We call it translation model, and monolingual corpora, it is called the language model. This system automatically learns the translation knowledge from a large amount of data instead of rules written up by human experts. For neural machine translation system, a typical model works by deep learning, and it will contain two components: the encoder and the other one is decoder. The encoder network will map source sentences onto a real valued vector, while the decoder network will create the translation itself. There are a lot of machine translation systems that adopt NMT, such as Google Translate, DeepL, Amazon Translate, Baidu Fanyi. The second component about computer-assisted translation tools, and we will start by introduce translation memory. It is a database storing translation that will previously translated by the translator. So translated sentences or segments will be saved as bilingual and aligned pair of source and target segments. As for translation units, it is a term to refer to a stored pair of aligned source and target. The content of the translation unit can be reused if the source text is exactly the same. We call it 100% match, and also fuzzy match if it is slightly different from the record in the database. So the advantages of using this component is it can increase productivity and enhance translation quality. by ensuring that the terminology and expressions will be used consistently within and across different translation projects. But it also has some disadvantages, as it will usually operate at sentence level. So it will disregard the context sentence embedded in, and then there will be some issue when it deals with piece of text smaller than entire segment, such as phrases or some words. A term base is actually a terminology database containing concept-oriented entries in a multilingual format. Each database usually relates to a specified subject, such as medicine, automobile, information technology, and so on. And each terminology entry will represent one concept rather than one word. In addition, each entry in a term base usually used for translation contains one term in different languages and some definitions, synonyms, and possibly some indication of whether this term is forbidden. Sometimes we will include it in a stop list, so it may not be used. Quality assurance is also an important component for CAT tools because it is a process to identify possible errors in translation, and it consists of some omissions, discrepancies in terminology, and sometimes to check the use of forbidden terms and some differences in layout. And sometimes there will be differences in the style of writing numerals, times, currencies, and numbers, symbols, names, etc. Translation environment tools is a system that integrates different functions with one single interface. So it can have some feature for importing and exporting content from different file types, such as we will work on different file formats. So this feature will help us to import and export the right format. Then it is a text editing environment where the translation, this whole project is performed. Translation memory, term-based quality assurance have been just introduced, and it is an interface with external machine translation system, even though sometimes we have to pay for the service. But in this interface, we can choose to integrate external machine translation system or not. So for translation technology, it surely has some benefits. For example, the first is it is practical and easy to access to in general. And it will increase the efficiency potentially. Also for its translation, the quality is fair and acceptable. And it can be integrated across different platforms. And it can enable more flexible collaboration between team members as they can collaborate and share their translation production with each other in real time and in different locations. In the meantime, it has some shortcomings, such as some translation technology interface are a little bit difficult to learn. And in some areas, it has limited performance. The quality of translation needs to be improved. Also, for the device, we may need to maintain it continuously. Now, let's take a look at some state-of-art translation systems. The first we want to introduce is DeepL. DeepL was originally founded in 2009 in Germany. It was based on language and online dictionary. So it is essentially a multilingual, publicly accessible translation memory, as it consists of millions of parallel segments. To create this product, Linguist scraped bilingual text samples from the internet using web crawlers at first, and then it applied machine learning algorithm to evaluate the quality. Nowadays, DeepAir Pro is a professional version of the company's machine translation. It was released in 2018, and you have to subscribe to it. This system permits CAD2 integration. So the technology behind DeepAir is the well-curated database and its approach to neural network. Therefore, it can yield outstanding results in certain language pairs and domains. A second system is Systring Translate. Systring was founded in 1968, and it was the first company to offer machine translation on a commercial basis. The modern Systring uses a hybrid approach which combines rule-based machine translation and neural machine translation system to facilitate consistent translations and terminologic compliance. So its performance is outstanding, and it is possible to learn from existing model and bilingual corpora. The costs are small. Systring shares its knowledge with OpenNMT, which is an open source neural machine translation ecosystem. MemberSource is a commercial cloud-based translation environment tools. It has the following major features. First, it includes translation memory, term basis, quality assurance component, and it also has third-party machine translation engine connectors, which means you can integrate the machine translation engine at your preference. Also, it supports machine translation through the MemberSource Translator Hub. You can find a lot of resources, and it is available as a mobile app on Android and iOS devices. As for Childer Studio, it is a successor of the Translator's Workbench, originally developed by the German company Childers GmbH. Nowadays, it is considered as a market leader. So most people tend to use its desktop version. It runs side by side with the company's terminology application multi-term. It also includes machine translation integration and post-editing into the whole translation workflow. Another friendly CAD tools is Deja-Vu. It offers free trial account, so you can try it, and it's very easy to use and learn. So it has a comprehensively designed, comfortable interface. It also includes alignment of your text, analysis, translation, proofreading, and quality assurance components. MemberQ is a collaborative translation environment and management system. It focuses on providing innovative, high quality, and efficient translation solutions for freelance translators, translation companies, and other enterprises around the world. As we can see from the highlighted box, it also contains translation memory, term basis, and auto translation rules, and some auto-correct lists. These are very useful components for CAD tools. Prompt is a rule-based machine translation. It used rule-based machine translation until 2011. Then it implements a method combining rule-based and statistic approaches. So it can be considered a hybrid method. In 2019, it introduced its new neural technology and flagship product, Prompt Neural Translation Server. Since that time, all machine translation systems developed by Prompt are neural-based. Additionally, this software supports Microsoft Windows, Linux, macOS, iOS, and Android, as well as other offline machine translation systems. WordFast refers to a variety of translation memory products created by WordFast LLC. For example, WordFast Classic is a word-based translation memory tool, while WordFast Professional version is a standalone translation memory tool for any platform. As for WordFast Anywhere, it's free and confidential web-based translation memory tool. We can try it in our workshop tonight. The current WordFast solutions runs on a range of platforms, although they use essentially comparable translation memory formats and they share workflows. Okay, now to summarize today's seminar, first we give a definition of translation technology and we overview this history of development, and we introduce some major types of the translation technology, including rule-based machine translation system, statistic machine translation, neural machine translation, and some major components of CAD tools like translation memory, term-based, quality assurance, and translation environment tools. Also, we take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of translation technology. Then we introduce briefly about some state-of-art translation systems like DeepL, System Pro, MemoSource, Trados, DejaVu, MemoQ, WordFast. So this is today's seminar. And last, I want to ask you to spend a few minutes to finish survey. Can you please scan this QR code to fill up the form for our survey? It's about, I want to have your feedback and advice on our seminar. Thank you.